Canada's GDP per capita rose roughly 30% in 25 years. The median paycheck didn't follow. That gap is Canada's silent collapse, and the policy choices that built it were anything but accidental. Look at the data from Statistics Canada. Since 1995, labor productivity, the actual economic output generated for every hour you work, rose by about 20%. Yet over that same period, the real median hourly wages, adjusted for inflation, crawled up by only 3 to 5%. This means the wealth you help create is growing, but your share of it is shrinking. In the mid-1990s, labor's share of national income stood at 68%. By 2023, that share dropped to roughly 60%. The wealth generated by your productivity didn't vanish. The split simply shifted away from workers and toward corporate profits and capital owners. The Bank of Canada's capacity indicators show a growing economy, but look under the hood of the job market. The structure of work has fundamentally changed. Involuntary part-time employment climbed from 5% in 1995 to 9% by 2022. Stable long-term positions have increasingly been replaced by short-term contract, temporary, and gig work. This precariousness strips away your collective bargaining power. The headline numbers look healthy because unemployment rates remain low. But a low unemployment rate doesn't capture the financial anxiety of holding 2 part-time contract jobs with no benefits. You can work 40 hours a week, do everything right, and still find yourself falling behind because the system is designed to reward capital over labor. This disconnect explains how Canada's GDP can grow on paper, while your household budget feels tighter every single month. But if wages remain flat, where did all the money go? And why did this widening divide become so painfully visible in the cost of a home? For decades, housing in Canada behaved like a predictable expense. Today, it is the ultimate gatekeeper of financial stability. House prices have completely detached from local incomes. In the 1990s, a typical home in Toronto or Vancouver cost about 5 times the median household income. By 2023, that price-to-income ratio soared to 12.5 in Toronto and nearly 14 in Vancouver. If you belong to the younger generation, this raw math has rewritten your life. In 2005, 55% of Canadians aged 25 to 34 owned their homes. By 2023, that homeownership rate plunged to 35%. Instead of building equity, you face an expensive rental market, watching the required down payment drift further out of reach. Saving for a home now takes decades, forcing people to delay major life milestones like starting a family. To cope, households are taking on extreme leverage. The ratio of household debt to disposable income climbed from 150% in 2005 to 190% by 2023. Families are carrying massive debt loads just to secure basic shelter. This outcome was not an accident. It was the predictable result of deliberate decisions. Who designed the systems that priced you out of your own future? Your city's zoning laws are not just dry administrative rules. They are active economic choices. For decades, municipal councils in Toronto and Vancouver locked vast swaths of residential land into single-family-only zoning. This meant you could only build one detached house on a single lot, legally banning duplexes, triplexes, or small apartments in the very neighborhoods where people actually wanted to live. When population pressure accelerated, the supply of new homes could not react. Throughout the 2010s, residential building permits stagnated across high-demand metropolitan areas. If a developer wanted to build a modest apartment building, they faced years of municipal red tape, endless public hearings, and exceptionally slow approval processes. The basic market mechanism is simple. When demand rises but supply stays tightly constrained, prices jump. To be fair, municipal planning authorities and councils do not design these rules to destroy your homeownership dreams. They face a genuine trade-off. Longtime homeowners pressure local representatives to protect neighborhood character, while city planners warn that existing roads, schools, and sewers cannot handle rapid, high-density growth without massive, taxpayer-funded upgrades. Yet, by choosing to protect the physical environment of older neighborhoods, cities shifted the financial burden entirely onto younger buyers and renters. Constrained supply made the housing market incredibly vulnerable. That vulnerability was about to be supercharged by a second policy layer that made the problem far worse: an unprecedented wave of cheap credit. Following the 2008 global financial crisis, the Bank of Canada anchored its overnight lending rate near historic lows, eventually slashing it to just 0.25% during the pandemic. Cheap debt flooded the market. Suddenly, your borrowing power expanded, allowing you to carry a much larger mortgage. But when everyone can borrow more, the net result is simply higher bids on the exact same houses. Central bankers and policymakers defend these low rates as a necessary shield. Cheaper credit supported business investment, kept people employed, and prevented a total economic freeze during periods of intense global instability. Yet the distribution of this cheap money was highly unequal. While the Office of the Superintendent of Financial Institutions tightened mortgage underwriting rules through Guideline B20 to protect banks from systemic risk, these stress tests acted as a high wall for new buyers, requiring larger down payments to qualify. At the same time, Canada's tax framework left major incentives for existing homeowners untouched. The lifetime capital gains exemption on principal residences meant established owners could accumulate housing wealth completely tax-free. In comparison, first-time buyer programs like the First-Time Home Buyer Incentive were far too modest to offset the rapid appreciation of these assets. This structural gap is not a moral failure of individual homeowners. People simply responded rationally to the incentives built into the tax code and the monetary system. The policy choices protected existing wealth while making new ownership highly restrictive. If other G7 nations face the same global pressures, how did they manage these trade-offs differently? Other wealthy nations navigated the exact same global financial pressures after 2008, yet they ended up with vastly different realities. Take Germany. Over half of its population rents, protected by unlimited tenancies and a strict rent break that caps new lease hikes at 10% above local benchmarks. Combined with dense urban planning, Germany successfully kept its average price-to-income ratio between 4 and 5. In France and the Netherlands, governments chose direct market intervention. Social housing makes up 20% of the national stock in France and nearly 30% in the Netherlands, using active public supply to anchor market costs. Meanwhile, Anglo examples like the United Kingdom and the United States favored targeted demand-side assistance, which frequently inflated prices further without resolving the underlying supply deficit. This comparison proves that policy design dictates your daily affordability. Global trends explain the pressure, but they do not justify the Canadian outcome. You have to look at the other side of the ledger. Many of these pressures were global. Supply chain shocks, post-pandemic disruptions, and inflation hit every major country. Keeping interest rates low and injecting emergency funding did save jobs and protect families from immediate ruin. But global headwinds do not fully explain why the divide between national growth and your household budget became so exceptionally wide here. Other G7 countries faced the same storms, yet they made different choices. The true test of Canadian governance is not that we faced global pressures, but that our domestic policies made the fallout so much harder for you to bear. Today, official data paints an economic portrait you might not recognize. When institutions value asset prices over people, the social contract breaks. These policy consequences are no longer hidden, and they are your daily reality. Subscribe for more evidence-led Canadian analysis.